Okay, we have 9 o'clock on the 18th of December, and this is the final meeting of the Police Services Board for the year 2019. And I do want to welcome our new staff sergeant who is sitting here with us, and replacing Jim, who has gone off to bigger and better things, I would suspect. First item of business, I'll let you know that, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move on. There are no ceremonial activities either, no presentations or deputations. Then the approval, correction of the Police Service Board minutes of November 27th. If there are no errors, corrections, or omissions, we'll adopt them as presented. So done. And then we have business arising, but I want to just hold that in abeyance for a moment. And we have two young ladies who are here this morning that are here to talk to us about topics that are on our agenda going now and going forward. And the first one, of course, is the false alarm bylaw, and Nikki Sloat is here from Community Services. And Nikki, I'll just ask you to jump in whenever you want to, if you think necessary, but I'm going to ask Owen to give us an update as to where we are procedurally with the false alarm bylaw.
Sure. So today we're just looking for the consent of the Police Service Board in order to move the bylaw forward to Council for approval. Once Council approves the bylaw, we'll be bringing it back to the Board to actually adopt. The staff report was in the agenda package today. We are looking for comments from the OPP to include for Council, and it has also been circulated to the County Solicitor. And if there's any questions.
A lot of work was done by Nikki Sloat and Owen and other staff, I would suspect, but certainly those two, and Owen, the solicitor, over the last few weeks. And even though I was out of the country for a little while, I had my email available and I reviewed it as well. And the short and long of it is a call will come in to the OPP, they will respond. It's up to the alarm owner to verify whether it's a good alarm or a false alarm in their estimation and deal with it. If they decide that they want the police to respond, they will make the call. If the officer appears on the scene and in determination of that officer, there are no overt evidence of any criminal activity or anything else, that officer can decide that it's a false alarm, and then there will be a reporting process that will go forward through normal channels to Community Services. And then based on the false alarm report, there will be a fee that has to be paid. What this new draft bylaw does is gets rid of all that administration in the back office that is currently taking place in terms of registering all the alarms, paying a fee to register the alarms, people getting one free one and then reduced rates on other ones. It just gets rid of all that stuff. It's very much black and white at this point. It's either a false alarm or not a false alarm. If the owner of the alarms wants to dispute or challenge the decision, there is an appeal process. So it's all fair and square as we move forward. We tried to keep it as simple as possible. Hopefully, as we go through the next few weeks and months, the incident of false alarms will drop dramatically. What you see, what you have seen in front of you in the minutes, attached to the minutes, is the culmination of a lot of research with other municipalities that have introduced false alarm reduction bylaws. All of those, however, have their own police forces. This is one of the first ones that I'm aware of, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, that a community that has the OPP as their police service is going forward with a false alarm bylaw. So if there are no comments, corrections, or errors, get them forward officially to Owen by the end of the year. But having said that, go ahead, Mike.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm looking at page 9 of our agenda package, the council and committee meeting that's supposed to go forward January 14th. Okay. The question I have is, we're looking at $200 per false alarm be set. right from the get-go. So what is our current charge for first, second, and third offense? What do we pay?
And answer that, and I guess it depends on whether the alarm's registered or not registered.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Mike, the fee schedule right now is a very escalating fee schedule, so the first alarm is free for both. If it is a registered property owner, the fees start at $75 for the first alarm, and then they start to escalate after that up to $400 for anything that is the fifth alarm and more. The fee schedule for the non-registered starts at $100 and escalates up 100, 200, 300, 400, up to 500, and then 500 is the maximum per alarm after 5.
Okay, thank you.
The number 200, as explained, is the call for service charge that we see in the contract, plus an admin fee, rounded up to $200. Should also introduce the county solicitor, Paula Boutis, has just joined us. So, any questions from your side, Joe?
Nothing. I reviewed it and support it. The only question I have for Nikki is the OPP reporting requirements to the county. I've checked with my administration. Nothing's really changed there from what we're currently doing.
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, there would be no change from Linda's end.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Yes, the January 14th.
January 14th, the whole board. Council? What is it at?
Council and committee.
And with your approval, I'll be there as well. But with the support of the OPP, the support of the board, and Mike, with you sitting on the board, I think that we can get this through pretty quickly with an implementation date of probably 1st of February. And I do want to reinforce the fact that this takes a tremendous amount of bureaucracy and administration off the back of community services in terms of alarm registration, collecting fees, and all of that goes on in the back office. And it's just moving forward, I think it's going to be a very productive piece of legislation. Anything further, Nikki, from you? Okay. From the solicitor? Well, between now and when it comes to council, you have lots of time, Paula. Mike?
Little glitch here, page 11 of the agenda package. It's goes to Norfolk Council and Committee on January 14, 2019. That should read 20. Mr. Clerk? Okay.
Sorry, it's not a PSB policy. It's not a PSB issue because these are off-duty paid officers. However, the solicitor and I and Shelley met and had a discussion. They wanted to make sure that we were included in the discussion. The board was. And they will be taking something forward, I guess, at the next meeting of council. So Shelley, over to you. If you want to grab that microphone.
Thank you, through the chair. So we presented a staff report in December, and council asked us to defer the report till January, so the first meeting in January, to allow the county solicitor and the police services board an opportunity to review the paid duty officers. So subsequently, we've had some meetings internally with staff and with the OPP to determine best approach forward. As I noted to council at the December 3rd meeting, the special events policy is under review in accordance to the direction of the strategic plan of council. they are looking to find some efficiencies and some streamlining of the special events process. So we're undertaking a survey with special event organizers, and we'll also be doing a comprehensive review with our stakeholders as well. Part of that policy does include some requirements for paid duty officers, and that's part of the special event application, that the event organizer can request paid duty officers to assist in their event organization. And also we consult with the OPP and the roads department when we look at parade routes and traffic flow, and if there's any ongoing concerns or issues. So it's a topic of great interest, certainly to council, and they're cautious of the impact to community event organizers. So just generally speaking, we're looking at community events on public property, private events on public property, and private events on private property, and bringing forward that revised scope in the special events policy. But that's just a general overview of where we're at with the process, and happy to answer any questions, or perhaps the inspector has any further comments.
Anything from the board? Mike?
Shelley, will this be in place like for the summer season, for say July 1st, or the festivals in Port Dover or Delhi or Waterford?
Through the chair, the policy has been in place for some time. The changes with respect to paid duty officers came into effect mid-year last year. So there were some special event organizers that did request OPP assistance, and they did pay for paid duty officers. There's other event organizers that, in consultation with our special events circulation group, we were able to mitigate some risks and change parade routes, and so they had no impact because they didn't require any assistance, and so we were able to mitigate those strategies. And I think the plan going forward is to continue that consultation with our special event organizers to see how we can mitigate any risk and any real requirements for paid duty officers. And that's our first strategy always, is to work with our event organizers and see how we can facilitate a very safe and successful event in our community.
Sounds like a plan, thank you.
Anything else on the board? From yourself, your side, Joe?
Yes, I'd just like to say that, the county has a policy which affords the operational opportunity should an event require police assistance, which is over and above normal detachment complement, that we can request that be done by pay duty, and that's been in policy at least since before 2016. So contrary to the comment in the paper of me breaking a contract, I'm not. I'm following county policy. That being said, I've had some conversation with Shelley regarding a option that could be explored by the county if they so wish, and that being every special event that goes through special event, the county could determine whether it is a community event.
Yep.
And if it's a community event, rather than filling it with pay duties if they feel that it's a community event and the organizer shouldn't pay for pay duties, I would fill it with overtime officers, which essentially gets billed back to the county. But that would be up to the county to determine what events they would pay for policing for and what events the organizer would pay for policing. That would not be my determination. My only involvement, our only involvement would be if police are required and the amount, such as set out in policy now. That is an option that I've spoken to Shelley about, and she can talk to the solicitor and county councilors if they want to go down that road.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And for the media who's here, it's fundamental that when an event occurs, let's take the July 1st in Port Dover, there are road closures that are approved by council. There's a form that goes out to the organizers, and part of that is, do you require, it doesn't say you must have, as far as I understand, do you require police to provide traffic safety and traffic direction? And then the decisions are taken from that point. And then the mitigation process takes place, and there are only 4 things you can do when you're talking about liability. You can accept the liability, you can wipe out the liability, and that's a lot of times costly. You can transfer it to buy insurance, whatever it might be, or you can mitigate it, shrink that liability. Only 4 things you can do. However, in my discussions with County Solicitor and Shelley, I went back to this document here called the Ontario Provincial Police Billing Model Overview. And my position was, during the daytime, if it's a county-approved, county road closures and all those types of things, that the officers that are on duty should do their best to service that call. And the only reason I went to that is because it says base service, traffic safety. So that's not to say that I'm against what you're saying, Joe, at all. It's just saying that that discussion has to take place at the county level. That was my input, because it gets back to the billing process. So go ahead, Joe.
And Mr. Chair, we do, if we can,
Yeah.
we will do those events with officers that are working regular shift. The issue
Good.
becomes, I can no longer guarantee that they will be there.
Yep.
So the issue is, if an officer is directing traffic for the Canada Day Parade in Port Dover and a priority call comes in,
Yep.
they're going to leave to do that priority call.
Yep.
What happens to the parade? Does it
Yep.
stop? What is the contingency that the county and the parade organizer has? This is
Yep.
the issue. So the only way to guarantee an officer there for the length that is required is by a pay duty, as per the policy is allowed, or such as the option that I suggested.
Yep. Understood very clearly. However, that discussion must take place, and some opposing views are resolved through compromise. That's the best thing I can say. I guess the big question there, too, would be if there is an emergency call, what happens to the auxiliaries that are on the ground?
Well, if there's a dedicated officer there, then the auxiliaries stay.
Okay.
If the uniform officer has to leave, auxiliaries cannot be unsupervised as per policy, so they would have to leave as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And
So,
first and foremost, as Shelley said, when these special event applications come in, we do everything that we can
Yep.
to mitigate the requirement for police. And I cite the Delhi Santa Claus Parade as a prime example this year. We worked with them. They changed the parade route, which was a much safer parade route for everyone, and they required no police assistance.
yeah,
So
it was
that-
always during Harvest Fest,
You know,
closing Highway 3.
This is what we work towards with all special events. So we at the OPP, we work with special events.
Yep.
We want them to continue. It's just, there's other issues that come up that have to be dealt with.
Thanks. Go ahead, George.
So, Mr. Chair, to our solicitor, my question is, are we educating the public with respect to Norfolk County stating that here's the rules and regulations with reference to the OPP and what council wants and what the OPP are looking at? Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, through the chair. It's an ongoing process of educating special event organizers and the public. We have regular open houses and sessions and meetings for potential special event organizers to come and learn about the process. We have dedicated staff that facilitate individual meetings with special event organizers and assist them through the process. And we have an annual survey that we do with all special event organizers so that we solicit their feedback so we can streamline and find efficiencies. So I think we go above to try to promote special events in our community and work with event organizers to have very successful and safe events throughout the community.
Yes, go ahead.
So, Mr. Chair, to Shelley, my concern basically is that we're not pointing the finger to the OPP and blaming the OPP. I think the right hand needs to know what the left hand's doing here because of certain comments that have come through council with respect to who's, I shouldn't say who's at fault, but the question of liability. But for myself, if I'm planning an event, I need to know specifics. So if a person is going to put forth an application, then the question becomes, is the OPP is aware, the county is aware, and there's a follow-through.
Through the chair, absolutely. There is a very detailed application package and a manual. Most times, event organizers actually sit with a dedicated staff member, and we actually assist with completing the application. We work as a team. I think there's 32 staff departments and agencies, including the OPP as one agency, but the AGCO, various the MTO are circulated on event applications for consultation. I don't think that there's any pitting against one group or another. It's very much collaboration and working together to find the most successful outcome for events.
Okay. Fundamentally, we're talking about three categories of events. Community events on community property, private events on community property, and private events on private property. And that last one's out of our wheelhouse. We don't deal with that one. So the county is dealing with the first two, and the policy is framed in that way. And absolutely, in my previous experience with the policy and most recently with the policy, there is collaboration and cooperation all around the table with our police service, our staff, and other entities. So it's the things like the Houghton Fair, very small. What has historically happened down there with the firefighters, fire truck blocking the intersection, you know, those kinds of things. And how much liability is there relative to that? Go ahead, Joe.
I just want to comment and make it clear that in the special event application, it states, you know, it asks the event organizer, do you request the OPP assistance? Yes or no, and what for? And then it refers to the outdoor event manual, section 18, which basically outlines the OPP's direction, in that we'll determine if and how many police are required, and that if it's over and above our normal complement, then you may be required to hire pay duty officers. So it's spelled out there, and they should be aware of it when that is a possibility when they request police assistance. And we're only talking about special event applications where they are requesting our police assistance. We do not push ourselves on any special event. If they can organize it such that they don't require us, that is great. That is what we wish, as long as it's a safe event. So I just want that known, that it's request for police assistance that we're talking about. We're not pushing ourselves on any event.
Yeah. And there should be well informed as well that they have options relative to private security that can take place. Go ahead, Mike.
Is there something on the form that asks for predicted attendance? And then if you've got like 5,000 people coming, do you have to have a certain number of officers? And then, you know, you get a rain or bad weather and then nobody shows up.
Shelley's anxious to answer that one.
Shelley's going to answer it.
Through the chair, absolutely. We do ask for anticipated attendance, and then we have those discussions with the event organizers too. We talk about contingency plans for rain and weather issues, and we have that discussion around the table with the various departments and agencies as well, and how we can plan and forecast for that.
George?
Mr. Chair, the reason I bring this to the board is, my concern is I don't want the fire department closing roads. I mean, the fire department is basically to fight fires. We have our police. They should be there if required. And of course, if the left hand knows what the right hand is doing and the application's filled out properly, I don't see why we would need the fire department to close off a road, and or ambulances for that matter.
Mm-hmm. But certainly, again, I just want to reiterate that it's a corporate policy for Norfolk County. It's not here. We only ask for our input based on experience from the past. The liability issues of whoever's directing traffic, and by the Highway Traffic Act, there's only one body that has the authority to direct traffic, and that's these fellows over here and the ladies that go with them. But we do see from practical experience, when road construction is underway, that there are flag people. So there must be something there. Go ahead, Paula.
So in follow-up from the request from council, that I actually look at the legal issues around who can direct traffic, and I consulted with Constable Varga around this issue. You're correct, of course, that there are people who control traffic in construction. These are specific permissions under the Highway Traffic Act. They are not just done. So the overriding requirement and obligation is for police officers. They are the ones with the lawful authority to direct traffic, and residents or citizens, people must obey, and there are consequences if you do not obey a police officer. Similar provisions are established for construction situations and for firefighters in emergencies. Those were the only two exceptions fundamentally that I could find that allowed other people to direct traffic and that required people like you and me to follow them. So the question then becomes, I don't see, for example, private security as an option for directing traffic. I see that can work for other aspects of the event, internal to the event, but it is not, potentially, but it is not an option for directing traffic. If you actually want to do it in accordance with the Highway Traffic Act. So one of my main concerns around not using officers where there is a determination on the part of the county that there is a real risk to injury, or even if it's hard, it's not always obvious, right? Random people drive through barricades today. And when they do that, volunteers can't stop them. Police officers could potentially stop them. And so I'm concerned about, and these may be very low risk. I will concede this is probably fairly low risk in this community. But that is just something we have to be cognizant of. And if you're choosing not to use a paid officer, and I think, to be honest, and I don't know, I'm not as familiar with the policy as folks around this table, the do you request, I don't think that it should be do you request. I think it should be we will be looking at whether you need it. And the county should be determining that, should be the one to make the decision about whether they need it or not, based on a risk analysis with a review by the people who know. And the main issue should be always in any safety hierarchy to eliminate the risk. That is always the first strategy in anything you're talking about on risk. Health and safety in a chemical situation or health and safety on the roads. Eliminate the risk, design to avoid the risk. That is always the first thing you should do. And then you do things like protective personal gear and all that other stuff. So from my perspective, our policy should not be seeking guidance from the applicants as to whether they need police. The county should be making that call, and they should be doing that in the context of consultation with people who understand risk. So basically what I'm saying is, the law is only officers can direct traffic, but for very specific exemptions, which makes sense because the third one I did not mention was oversized vehicles, where you have an escort, and the escort also has authority. So unless one of those three things, and they're not going to apply in the context of events, construction, well, fire emergency might because there's a fire, okay, or the last one around construction, fire, in emergency works, and then oversized. Those just aren't relevant to our conversation. They're just not, for the most part, unless you're talking about floats, perhaps. So that being the case, it is my opinion that the county should be determining the risk and making a decision about whether or if paid officer duties are required after mitigation has been determined, if it's possible, if you can use on duty or not, if we're willing to set up, because we issued the permit. Right? We issue the permit. So if we're going to issue the permit, we have to decide what risk we are going to allow to occur or not to occur. And so in that context, it is my advice and will be my advice to council that that's how we should be doing it. It shouldn't be up to the event organizers.
So what we're seeing fundamentally is, like any other policy, it's shifting and growing because of circumstances that arise. Historically, we've had as I say, the Houghton Fair doing whatever they did. We have winterlude going on or light up in the park, and Bonnie Drive is closed off. There are no police officers there, that type of thing. So we see these things, they're at sixes and nines in terms of can we bring consistency to all the process as best possible with the mitigation process, changing the route, as Joe mentioned in Delhi, which was a good decision for them. At the end of the day, and I hate that phrase, but when all is said and done, there's going to be a cost to somebody, and the council is going to have to make a decision whether it's the organizer is going to have to pay, or there's going to be a granting program, or whatever it might be. Anything further from the board? Joe, anything from your side?
No, nothing.
Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies. Appreciate your attendance and your knowledge and your input. I think that Councillor Columbus can take it forward that it was discussed here and that that there was a freewheeling discussion that took place, and that we're very supportive of the activity that's taking place under Shelley's guidance. All right? Yep. And then we can jump back up to the Office of the Premier and the Ontario Developing New Strategy to Fight Human Trafficking under correspondence. Anything from your side, Joe, on this one?
The only thing I'd like to mention is that we do have officers within our crime unit that have taken specialty courses in investigating human trafficking, as well as we also have our provincial human trafficking unit, which we can rely on for assistance. Luckily, we have not seen a lot of this within Norfolk County. However, there has been some investigations regarding it. So it's out there, and people need to be aware of it, and if they see signs of it, to tell somebody.
Thank you. Anything from the board on that correspondence? We'll accept that correspondence from the Premier for the record. Thank you very much. Monthly report, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So we'll start page 34. Overtime allotment per the contract is $387,628. Dollars spent to date estimate $355,955.96, which is approximately 91.83% of our overtime budget. So we've got the month of December. Hopefully we'll hit target there. Auxiliary policing hours were not available for the end of November. I'll have them at the next meeting.
Okay.
No tributes, and we just have Crime Stoppers correspondence, page 36. Highlights there to note, there have been 521 anonymous with tips received this year. 2,141 arrests since inception, and 6,331 charges laid since inception. Crime Stoppers for student Crime Stoppers. Bursary applications were handed out to all high schools in Haldeman and Norfolk. Neil Unwin attended the Hagersville High School commencement and presented the William Robert Courtnage Community Service Bursary and the Regional Crime Stoppers Award to graduating students who were involved in the Student Crime Stoppers program within the school. Promotions, they attended or gave presentations to the Port Dover Santa Claus Parade, Simcoe Kinsman, Special Olympics Selkirk Parade, and the Caledonia Parade. They continue with their monthly media relations. On November 27th, CHCH featured them in the Lock It, Lose It public service announcement. Fundraising, just want to mention for everyone to get their ticket. Their Crime Stoppers is currently selling tickets for a Boston Pizza here in Simcoe fundraiser, $25 each, going to be held on January 15th. Tickets are available through the Crime Stoppers office. They're also conducting a raffle for a Big Green Egg barbecue smoker, Raffle will be held on May 11th as a fundraiser. Tickets are $5 each, or 3 for $10. Again, tickets are available through the Crime Stoppers office or any board member. Internationally, and I don't know if this was this mentioned about Amy at the last meeting, John? Her award?
Yes.
It was?
For-
Okay.
for-
And she got the international? Okay,
Yes.
I won't repeat that then. That's the Crime Stoppers. Page 38, locally dedicated hours of overtime. For November, there were 657 hours of municipal overtime, 150 hours of provincial overtime. And then the following pages are our statistics. If anybody has questions regarding those, if you review them, I will answer them. A couple highlights. Our Community Street Crimes Unit, during the month of November, seized $13,560 worth of drugs, $165,000 in property, and $4,544 in currency. They were involved in executing 7 warrants, which resulted in 13 charges. During the month of November, our calls regarding mental health occurrences were down below our projected range. However, the year-to-date time spent per mental health call continues to sit at 6 3/4 hours per call. And in traffic-related, and I don't know whether it was the season or what, but we had a spike in impaired driving incidents. Normally, we would expect to see about 7 events in November. This November, we actually saw 19 impaired driving events, and that is impaired by alcohol and drugs combined. So,
On the drug side, if I might, Joe, the testing for drug impairment, I know a number of officers have gone through the training.
yes,
Are we well, does the complement well up on that?
yes. Just about every officer has received the standard field sobriety test results, and we just had another officer come back from the training in Florida for the drug recognition, which gives us, I believe, 3 in detachment. So we're well suited for.
Are they on
that.
regular shift, or are they on call for?
No, they're on regular shift, and if we need a drug recognition officer, and there's not one in a nearby county, then we can
Okay.
call them in.
Thank you.
I'll go through focus patrols. We currently, ongoing, we have a focus patrol for the Simcoe Panorama in regards to mischiefs. That'll continue until January the 6th. We had a focus patrol regarding Highway 3 and school bus passing, and that just closed. And it was for between Highway 3, or on Highway 3 between Simcoe and Cortland, for vehicles passing school buses. So I'll have the results of that next meeting. And we did a focus patrol for St. John's Road that ran from the 12th of November to the 29th of November, and 10 officers dedicated 22 and a quarter hours to that focus patrol. 31 charges were laid. And focus patrol for Evergreen Hill Road failed to stop at Queen Street. That ran for the month of November, and 9 charges were laid as a result of that focus patrol.
On the issue of focus controls, and get back to Mike's favorite topic, and that's the speed watch signs and whatnot. When is the committee meeting, and then bring forward the committee recommendations and citing of them?
The speed watch signs are in. The mobile speed watch sign is ready to go and be deployed at whenever.
Okay.
I did send a message, I think through yourself, Mr. Chair, and to Councillor Martin regarding perhaps the county would want to do a photo op prior to deployment. I don't suggest that we deploy it until the weather gets nice. It's not a.
Well, it'll be Sunday. I think it's going to be a +4.
Yeah,
No.
it's not an opportune time. The location of the speed watch signs, prior to them coming in, there was some discussion at the Collision Reduction Committee, and because 6 came in, they're looking at Highway 6 by St. Cecilia School in Dover, which I think there's been several deputations to PSB regarding, and it is a identified area. Thompson Road in Villanova, which we've had deputations. And then the other hot spot is James Street in Delhi. Those appear to be the 3 locations that will be recommended.
Yeah, we received correspondence from Councillor Martin and Councillor Rabbits. Councillor Rabbits was voicing concern about Queensway East.
Yes, and again, there's 6 signs. Everybody wants one, and
No, exactly.
we knew this was going to be an issue when they came in.
Yep.
However, in my opinion, Dover definitely, and there's been very many deputations here regarding that. Thompson Road, there's been very many deputations, and James Street. I've not seen any from Simcoe here, so I think as a starting point, we should go with the 3 hot spots identified and move forward from there.
And if there's any really good news is that capital budget was approved and there are 6 more
Yes.
to be purchased.
And the Simcoe locations, we can put, if there's a place to put the mobile sign, we can put it out and hit it that way until we get a permanent sign.
Mike? Turn your mic on, Blake.
We should put a camera on it in case the tires get burned off again.
Well, that's why we should put a permanent sign there. We won't have to worry about tires.
Red light cameras and all the rest of it.
And that's my report, and I'll take any questions anyone has.
Okay. Before we go to questions, Mike, just at the conclusion of the meeting, I'll be just resurrecting and reviewing the 4 things that are before the board going into the new year, but for your own edification, that certainly when the solicitor and the rest of the staff and myself and the board conclude discussions on which bylaws we'll be asking the OPP to enforce, and it'll be a minimal number, believe me, that those statistics will have to be wrapped up into these types of things. False alarms are another one, just so we can see some progress or some activity that's taking place.
Yeah, and that's fine as when you first became chair and we had the longer report.
Yeah.
And you wanted it short, and that's
Yeah,
fine.
exactly.
But whatever the board wants reported on, no problem.
Yeah, we'll just be looking at success rates on those that we'll be bringing forward in the new year for you.
Yeah, well, when we determine what you need, we'll look at
Yeah.
what a base is and then
Thank
how
you.
to determine the success rate.
Michael?
Well, just to send commendations to your street crime unit for all their work in making all the arrests they do in the town of Simcoe and throughout the communities of Delhi. I know other municipalities or communities are really struggling with that, and we seem to have a good record of arrests in that area.
Thank you, and I'll be sure to convey that message to them. Our street crimes unit is very experienced, very aggressive, and they're out there day in, day out.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything further? George?
Mr. Chair, to our chief. Chief, on page 43, when I'm looking at traffic-related charges, and I saw this last night, and I'm very disappointed on the fact that our numbers are so high, and this is referring to October. So what I understand is we have 159 charges of impaired driving in October to date, on page 43 where it refers to traffic-related charges and it says impaired.
That's
The overall?
159 year to date. So
To date.
all of 2019 up until the end of October.
Correct. And then you mentioned here, Mr. Chair, to the chief, that we had 19 in the month of November, correct?
Correct.
So that brings us to a total of 178.
Correct.
Correct? Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe that we have so many charges of impaired driving in Norfolk County.
Perhaps it would be informative to review again the process when someone is stopped, and the assumption is that there is alcohol or drugs involved. What are the process in terms of charges that can be laid? I know there's a suspension of license, all of those things. Can you go through that very quickly for us? Or who's the traffic guy here?
Well, during it, if there's a, if,
I just asked because when you say charges, we've got
so,
to understand
well,
what that means.
the impaired charges are, that doesn't include any 3-day suspensions,
Okay.
7-day suspensions, or 30-day suspensions.
Oh, it doesn't?
No.
No, these are just
These are
impaired?
just impaired by alcohol, impaired by drugs, or your over 80 charges.
Wow.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that those numbers
So
are,
and I can tell you how many 3-day suspensions we had, if you bear with me, sir.
Mr. Chair, to the chief, I didn't sleep all night just tossing and turning, thinking, unbelievable, I can't believe the numbers are so high. And this is just Norfolk County.
Mr. Chair, if I could comment
Sure.
on that, I think it is a large number, but I think I have to give some credit to our frontline uniform officers who are out there diligently on a daily basis attempting to make our roads safer, particularly with their traffic stops and with the ride checks that they're doing. They're doing excellent work out there. And just to tie in, Mike, with your comments on our street crimes unit too, our uniform folks are out there on a day-in, day-out basis sharing information with our street crime unit too and doing a lot of great digging for us.
yeah.
So in the month of October, there was four roadside screening were issued. There's 12 ADL the license suspensions. Okay. 4 3-day suspensions issued, and officers conducted 30 ride checks and 14 seatbelt checks.
Now, Mr. Chair, if I may, to the chief, I'm not disappointed in the work that the OPP is doing. I'm glad that these impaired drivers are off the road and keeping us safe, but I'm just trying to understand why the numbers are so high.
Well, certainly we got to give due credit, and it's absolutely is due to the frontline troops who are out there doing this yeoman work. It's disappointing, but it is what it is, and hopefully the message will become very clear to people. Don't drink and drive. There are options, and we'll see what the December numbers are, given the holiday season approaching. Hopefully they're much improved. Anything further? Go ahead, George.
So, Mr. Chair, to our police chief, are there any, is there anything that the police board can do to help with resources to combat this problem? And it's a major problem.
Resource-wise, I believe that we're well suited for enforcement. It's education. It's education of the people. I think, if I remember correctly, the health unit did a study, and Norfolk County has one of the highest rates of alcohol consumption in the province. So again, it's an educational issue. It's a social issue, and it basically comes down to don't drink and drive. There's options. Take those options. We have Ride Norfolk now in the county, which I think is great, and it's affordable. We're one of the few rural communities with a bus service. And in the summertime, they run it down to Turkey Point and Long Point. So, people need to use that. And it's education.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Inspector. Then that takes us to other business. And George, you wanted to raise something under other business?
If I can, Mr. Chair, to the Chief of Police and to the staff, I just wanted, on a personal note from the Santos family to the OPP family, on December the 12th, I attended my nephew's residence, and I'm referring to the north end of Simcoe, west of Kelvin. And when I attended in the morning, I noticed that the blinds were drawn, and I also noticed that he wasn't attending the door. And I spoke with my niece, who wasn't at the premises, and when she gave me the clear understanding that there were some mental health issues, I called 911, and of course they asked for fire, ambulance, and police. I asked for police, put on hold, but within 30 seconds, I spoke with a dispatcher, and I would say within about 12 to 15 minutes, an officer showed up with a nurse. I believe that she's a psychiatric nurse, a mental health nurse. And within a span of 5 minutes, that scene went from crisis to somewhat, I shouldn't say calm, cool, and collective, but within a span of 45 minutes, that scene went from, let's put it this way, it could have been very chaotic, it could have gone 101 different ways, but what I saw with my own eyes, and it reassured me that not only the Norfolk OPP are doing an excellent job, but they're very professional. The roads were closed, they secured the scene, and my nephew came out and was sent to Brantford General Hospital, where he's under treatment. So I just wanted to say thank you to the chief and his officers. From our hearts to the OPP family, thank you. He gets to see another day, and he's getting treatment. And I understand, in speaking with the officers, this is an ongoing thing in our county with regards to mental health. But what I saw with my own eyes, and truly from my heart and from the Santos family to the OPP family, thank you once again. So, Chief, thanks.
Thank you for those comments, and I'm very glad that your nephew is getting treatment and on the road to recovery. And I have passed, we spoke previously about this, and I have passed your comments on to our officers that were involved. They're very appreciative. Thank you.
Chair to the Chief, thank you very much again.
Thank you. And it's very illustrative of the interactions and the interplay that takes place with the mental health side of the house and the police force and what's happening. And of course, it's going to all lead into the plan that the community, that the county is responsible to develop, the Community Safety and Wellness Plan, by January 2021. So they have a year to get this thing together. And certainly it has come forward that because the Haldeman-Norfolk Health Unit serves both Haldeman and Norfolk, that perhaps Haldeman and Norfolk, and for you, Mike, can share in developing that plan going forward. We will be at the table. We're not leading it. It's a county-led process, and they have to decide who's going to do that. So there's that. And we'll see what they come up with and what improvements can be made in the system, if any. The other aspect of other business is, have we heard anything more about animal welfare and that legislation?
Not since the last update
Okay.
that you had at the last meeting.
All right.
Apparently they're coming out with something in the new year.
Well, I think we share the concern that if they're going to be downloading or loading additional work on the police force, that adequate, effective training is given in the first instance, and that the force locally, wherever it is, across Ontario, can accommodate that workload.
I think it's important, and we noted in previous meeting that Norfolk is one of the few areas that don't have a provincial unit that's designated now to cover the area.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's prudent that the county police service board push it up the chain that
Yep.
we need somebody to cover our area.
Yeah, the OSPCA does not have an office here. The Humane Society that is established here is not part of the official Humane Society network of Ontario. So there is a gap that has to be taken care of. That's for sure. Michael, anything from you on other business? No. Before I go to question period, Monty. I just want to say the following things, that with Dave Murphy leaving as a provincial appointee, we need a vice chair. So I'll leave it to the board to decide who. Mike?
I'll like to put George Santos' name forward to be vice chair.
George, you
Service
accept
Board?
that nomination?
Mr. Chair, I do. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
and with the lack of another member, I'll second that nomination. And all in favor? And it's carried. So, what? George will be the vice chair. And then, just a recap of the things that we've got on our table going forward into 2020. First, of course, we dealt with today was the false alarm bylaw, and the board is now moving that forward to the council for their support. This will be a PSB bylaw, not a council bylaw. So it'll be probably 2020-1 PSB. So hopefully when it does arrive on their table, Mike, you can speak to that as well. And Nikki will be there, the solicitor will be there, and I will be there. So hopefully we can answer any questions that may come up from the council members. Second, PSB will meet again with bylaw folks and the county solicitor to confirm which bylaws that the county will expressly request for police enforcement, including any restrictions on those things, such as the time of day, night, holidays, weekends, whatever it might be. It'll be quite specific. And I expect that the very small number that was discussed at our previous meetings will prevail. So at least, if with passage of the false alarm bylaw, that will be one that we will talk to. The county solicitor will be asked to communicate to council's wishes to ourselves, to yourselves, and to Municipal Policing Bureau. So that's part of the contract, and whether it'll be a codicil or an addendum or just an information letter, we're not quite sure what Paula will bring forward, but certainly it will be on the official record that these are the bylaws only that Norfolk County wishes to have police enforcement. And third, council has been asked to complete a survey. Has that gone forward, Owen?
It's actually going to go out January 4th, right after New Year's, and we'll be asking for it back on the 14th.
Okay.
And it'll be at the next PSB meeting.
Okay, thank you. So they'll be asked to complete a little survey about what their priorities are relative to policing in Norfolk County. And then when those come forward to the board for consideration and approval, then we'll have a discussion with our policing service, the OPP, and their priorities that may be coming down from Aurelia, and hopefully we can meld them all into one Norfolk County strategic plan on policing. Okay. The fourth one is the establishment of the Norfolk County Policing Committee and the Community Policing Committee, and we are waiting for the clerk to issue requests for applications, those types of things. Where are we with that now, Owen?
So that is actually, it's also going to council, CIC on the 14th.
Okay.
They'll approve it, establish the committee, and then we're targeting the end of February to dissolve the current committees and form the new one. And there will be advertising for the positions in February.
Thank you. Any comment or question on that one? Go ahead, Joe.
Just in that regards, we have a meeting scheduled for January 16th. Are we still going to go ahead with that or cancel that for community policing?
Community policing?
Yes, I've yet to speak with the chairs, but I was going to recommend that we do go forward with it, and I can give them an update on the process for dissolving and returning funds to the county, that type of thing.
Okay, that's great. Just when you confirm that, just for scheduling purposes for us.
Yeah, it's just to recap, that one is the community policing committees that are out there. At one point, there were 11 of them, and that's winnowed down to a very small number, and even those have struggled and finally decided that they don't have enough volunteer to service the committees, and so they're going to collapse. Most of them have collapsed. So the option is to go to one strategic committee for Norfolk County, and hopefully we can get representation from each of the wards and put that back together. And then the terms of reference are drafted, I know that. So it's a matter of getting those approved by council, and then the request for applications to go out, and then we'll sit down. And the small amount was put in the budget for servicing that committee. What we do know is the activity in Cortland with Alzheimer's and dementia program, that will continue for sure. So those are the 4 things that are on our table going forward. And certainly the PSB is very interested in doing everything we can to make sure that we have the most professional and best policing service that we can possibly have. We support the OPP in their efforts. Large part of what we want to do going forward is reduce unnecessary calls for service and put those excellent professional people doing crime prevention, law enforcement, those things that are priorities in the Police Services Act, which is currently there, and the priorities of council as well. So that's the ambition that we have. And certainly I'm very interested in making sure that the things that we do, the positive things like the false alarm bylaw, are advertised through the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards and communities that are out there that use the Ontario Provincial Police as their policing service, because I think that there's a lot of wasted effort because of that, chasing false alarms. Go ahead, Joe.
Just before I forget, and you mentioned the Ontario Association chiefs, please. It was confirmed that we, Norfolk County, were hosting, and I think Owen sent that out, for September the 29th, we're hosting the Ontario Association Zone 4 here. Not sure where yet, but we'll work with the board and we'll come up with a venue and speaker and whatnot. So
this will be a community event on a community property.
There'll be lots of guns present, I'm sure.
Thank you very much. Yeah, there's a number of things coming up. There's one on the end of January as well in Toronto. Is that correct? Yeah.
It's in
No,
Halton.
this was something else that was going on.
Oh, that was the meeting regarding the new Police Services Act.
Yes.
Your consultation.
Yes, that's what it is. I know I'm scheduled to go to it.
Yes, that's in January. I can forward that out again. I did actually want to ask the board today, just so that I can schedule it, the annual OAPSB conference. Is anyone intend on going to that? I believe it's a 2 to 3 day event.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's Toronto, yeah, this year. I will be going. Yeah. Send it out again, Owen.
I will.
Yeah, please. So with that, question period.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very quickly to the chief. My pen failed me. You were talking about alcohol consumption in Ontario, and I thought I heard you say it's an educational issue and it's a social issue. Did I get the words right there?
I was referring to, and I'd have to go back and confirm, but I believe there was a study done by the Holman Norfolk Health Unit, which indicated that Norfolk has a very high consumption of alcohol. And well, it's an educational issue for impaired driving. That we also need to have the educational component, which is out there through MAD Canada and various organizations. But impaired driving, I believe it's a social issue as well, because again, if it's accepted by society, then it's a social issue, but it shouldn't. Yeah. Yeah. And then. It is. It's unfortunate, but it's educational component.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much. And with that, Board Member Columbus has moved, and George Santos second, that we go into closed session to discuss operational issues. All in favor? Thank you very much. We'll do that. And for Monty and everyone else who is watching and listening, have the very best Christmas ever. Joyous and happy, we hope. And all the best in 2020.